Hi, I'm Jacob Suggs, and let's talk a bit about Marvel. Yes, there is an ongoing war with Marvel fans and DC comic book fans right now, but let's not get into that. Let's kind of put that off to the side and mainly just focus on one side, Marvel, for the sake of this video. Now, when it comes to Marvel with their cinematic universe, they've established their characters in different movies and then built up to stuff like the Avengers and now Infinity War. But their cinematic universe isn't just really well received, it's very smart and very well constructed, but I think most importantly, it's revolutionary. There really hasn't been a cinematic universe like this before in the Marvel world or in comic books or really in cinema. And I think that's paid off for the most part, but there's just one problem. Are Marvel's movies too family friendly? Now look, we all love bright colors and colorful movies and stuff like that, and although I personally loved Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, it would have been nice to see a few, colors other than blues and blacks and grays in the film. And although Marvel typically has the more family-friendly movies, DC's been criticized for having too adult and mature superhero movies that are way too dark for kids and just too convoluted for adults to really focus on. They feel like DC's basically taking themselves way too seriously, whereas Marvel completely understands the genre. And that is why I'm going to be talking to you today about the Marvel Netflix shows, well, one in particular, but that's ultimately why I love those shows on Netflix. And between you and me, I honestly think that some of the shows, if not the majority of the shows that Marvel's just released on Netflix, are actually better than some of the films that they put out in theaters. I haven't seen Luke Cage at the time of this. I know I'm going to be starting it very soon, but I have seen both seasons of Daredevil and Jessica Jones. See, on Netflix, Marvel's created shows that are more mature and adult-oriented and dark and gritty, if you will. And I feel like this personally contrasts very well whenever you have a cinematic universe that's very lighthearted and fun. And yeah, adults can enjoy those Avengers movies as well. I mean, I love them. But that being said, we all kind of crave more intense stories here and there. And whenever you're in a comic book world and universe that you've already established, some stuff's gotta go down every now and then, but we never see it in the movies. And although I love Daredevil, and Daredevil's a great show, don't get me wrong, I'll be talking about that a little bit later, I personally think that Jessica Jones is hands down my favorite Netflix series within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And here's why. Here's why I think Jessica Jones is really important, not just for Marvel, but for comic book shows, and why it's definitely worth checking out. Jessica Jones follows, Jessica Jones, a private detective as she goes around New York City and looks for different cases and stuff. She's basically a detective for hire. And she used to have a superhero career, although it was very, very brief. And whenever one of her ex-boyfriends and also our main antagonist for the show Kilgrave shows back up, stuff starts to go down, and that's basically our show. Oh, and did I mention that Kilgrave can kind of control minds and stuff? Because that's also kind of important. I don't know, maybe just a little thing. Now, first off, I just want to mention that I love how this show doesn't hold back. It deals with real-life problems that I think are very important to bring up within comic book genres, because we don't really see that, and when we do, it's very brushed over because, family pictures. But Daredevil and Jessica Jones don't hold back. Jessica Jones especially, dealing with subject matter like rape, sexual assault, assault in general. And yeah, they do also discuss how the Avengers saved New York and stuff like that, but just like Civil War, there's repercussions to that to where some people really aren't for the Avengers because of that reason. And growing up, and I still am, a big fan of film noir and classic mystery films, and I think that mixing that genre with the comic book genre is very smart and very creative and creates a really original idea and a really awesome story. Now, Jessica Jones herself is a really, really interesting character in my opinion, but part of the reason why I appreciate the character and like the character so much is because one, she's sarcastic and doesn't give a crap, but two, she's very vulnerable. She's just a really broken hero both inside and outside, and in a world of the Avengers, she's just trying to find her place. Obviously, she doesn't want to be on the front lines with the Avengers fighting, that's not for her, so she's like, you know, I'll just drink away my problems and just deal with those another day, and I'll just, you know, deal with little stuff on the street. And she can take punches. Like, she's hurt a few times in this show, both physically and mentally and emotionally, and because of that reason, it makes her more of a realistic character, unlike somebody that can just fly around and take bullets and, you know, just not get hurt. Okay, this is hands down my favorite part of Jessica Jones, the visual style behind it. What I mean by that is that a bunch of different directors come for each episode of Jessica Jones, and they bring their own unique style to each episode, but that's not a bad thing. Each episode of Jessica Jones looks different. There are really cool camera angles and shots and different visual styles going on, but it's not enough to where it contrasts with the overall tone of the show, and I think that's a really big accomplishment. Each episode was just unique and exciting, not just for the characters and the story and plot going on, but because the visuals were very different and exciting and vibrant, even though the show's undertones are basically dark, gritty, and gloomy. I don't really know how to describe it. It's very beautiful looking, even though the show itself isn't meant to be that way. You're gonna get it whenever you watch the show, trust me. Now, Kilgrave is the main antagonist of Jessica Jones, and although David Tennant is my favorite Doctor, and I'll stand by that, he makes for a really menacing villain, and I did not see that coming. Now, Kilgrave can control minds. That's his ability. In fact, there's a few times to where it's very scary and a few times to where it's really funny. Like, for example, a dude pisses him off and he's like, go throw coffee in your face, and the dude does it. Kilgrave just walks away, and I felt bad for laughing at the guy, but at the same time, you're just like, oh my gosh. The main issue that I have with most Marvel movies and shows and stuff like that are that the villain isn't memorable. He doesn't make an impact, or she doesn't make an impact, and they're just very forgettable. But in the Netflix shows, both Daredevil and especially in Jessica Jones, Kilgrave makes his mark as a very menacing person and a really, really great antagonist for the show. Not only is he a very controlling person both with his powers and without his powers, which was a really interesting concept, but he has a personal connection with Jessica Jones, being a former lover and having a romantic relationship with her once, and kind of wanting to get back into that. The best kind of villains, and I heard this somewhere but I don't exactly know where, are the villains that we can kind of understand where they're coming from, and this dude's backstory is really messed up and really, really tragic, and we can kind of see where all of the rage and confusion and controlment kind of came from, which is really, really done effectively in the show. And like I said before, and I'm going to bring it up again because I think it's important, one of the biggest positives that I can give with this show is that it deals with these real issues. If the show was just kind of brushing them over, then it wouldn't have been as effective. But since it really dives down deep into these really serious issues, we really feel more for the characters, making even the side characters more interesting. Like, for example, I love how she's struggling with alcoholism. It makes sense that a former washed-out hero with a short-lived career and a really troubled past wouldn't just automatically go to justice like Batman or somebody like that. I'm just saying that not every hero is going to, take their anger and confusion and turn it into justice right away. Most people would either drink or do something to avoid that problem, and I think that's a really good catalyst for a character. She's a hero that's less than heroic, even though she doesn't consider herself a hero in the first place, which is pretty interesting. In my opinion, Jessica Jones is one of the most perfect ways to write a female character or a female protagonist. Not only is she written as a hero, but she's written as a broken hero that has real-life problems and real-life issues and real-life struggles. It makes her very memorable and non-forgettable. How did I not finish that? And that's why I like the Netflix shows maybe a little bit more than some of the Marvel films, because the shows take a lot of risks, and they can because they're on Netflix. They're meant for that audience. Now, I am a bit partial to film noir and mystery movies and stuff like that, and that's essentially what this is first and foremost. Calling it a superhero, show, I feel like that's cutting it a little bit short. But in the end, I can't recommend that you check out Jessica Jones enough. It's a great show with great characters, a great plot, a really great, terrifying, memorable villain, and the visual style of the show is hands down one of my favorite visual styles I've seen for any series in a long time. So what do you think of Jessica Jones? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Let me know down in the comments below as always. I love reading the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out Jessica Jones on Netflix. It's really great. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, frame by frame. Remember the name, and I'll see you in the next frame by frame film review.